Good evening.
Hi.
Nice to see you. You know, they say if you want to hear God laugh, you make your plans.
Yep.
For several weeks, I have been coming to this church, making plans for tonight's performance. And God is laughing. Just about a week ago, I, who never get colds, years go by, I don't get colds. I got the mother of all colds. And if I had to have one, it had to be the worst cold I've ever had, and it had to be this week. So I'm on medication to keep me from coughing, and I have my little canteen here so I can get through the show. And we'll see how it works. My name is Betty, and yes, I've been called Betty Boop about 1,000 times. I don't mind. Besides having the same name, Betty Boop and I were born at the same time during the Great Depression, and Herbert Hoover was president. And there the similarity ends. I mean, look at me. I'm a perfectly normal woman. Now take a look at Betty Boop. You know, she has no neck. No, she has this humongous, pasty, white, round, full moon face. And it sits somewhere on this tiny little body, and she prances around in high heels, and you know, it defies the laws of gravity. And she never went through puberty. And she never had a hot flash. She never even had a cold. And nothing ever sags. But I have to say, she was pretty popular being in the movies and all. Oh yeah, she was on the silver screen. She did a flick. Well, her leading man, he was the ultimate matinee idol. The physique, the dreamy eyes, the hair, the velvety voice, and when he sang his signature song, women swooned. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I live in a garbage can. When I eat my spinach, I fast to the finish. Popeye the Sailor Man. Oh yeah, they were an item. Everybody knew. And we knew all this stuff because my Uncle Otzi painted scenery over at MGM. And he would tell us all the gossip. And one time, he told my parents what he saw Loretta Young and Clark Gable doing behind some abandoned scenery. Oh, and my mother went, but my father guffawed. He guffawed. So one time at a party when Uncle Otzi was telling us what he saw Betty Boop and Popeye doing, well, you know, I was very interested in that. And so let me see. Well, they were doing the same thing, but they weren't behind some scenery, no. Let's see. There was Betty Boop and another lady, and there was Popeye. And I think they were in a kitchen because he said they were going to saute spinach with olive oil. And, no, it wasn't virgin olive oil. No. My Uncle Otzi said that olive oil had already been used. Many times. Everybody laughed, but I didn't know what was so funny about people cooking spinach. But maybe all that spinach, that's where Popeye got his boop boop. Well, anyway, today, Popeye, he's living his golden years out at Shady Pines. And Betty Boop, she just hasn't changed a bit. No, she hasn't changed at all. The freaky bitch. Well, my name is really Betty Lee. And unlike Betty Boop, I grew up normally. And right now, I'm this many. See? See? This is how many I am. See? See? I'm this many. And I already know my numbers. Want to hear? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 17, 19, 24, and 17, and 80, 99, and 100. And I already know my letters too. Want to hear? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Anyone know how I know? Well, I'm going to tell you. See, this is our bathroom. And, oh, it's okay, you can come in. Yeah, because I'm just sitting here on the side of the tub, and I'm watching my father shave. And this is how he does it. He has a cup with soap, and he has a brush, and he goes, and he goes, and then he gets the razor. Oh, you mustn't touch the razor. No, don't touch the razor. It's very sharp. You don't play with the razor. And he goes like this, and like this, and like this. And then he goes like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. And he smells so good and clean. And one day, he sat down next to me, and he said, can you say ABC? ABC. Remember that for tomorrow. Okay. So today is tomorrow, and I'm sitting on the edge of the tub, and I'm watching my father shave, and he sits down, he says, do you remember what I told you yesterday? A, B, C. Good. Put out your hand like this. I did. And he put a penny on my baby little finger right there. See, it's right there. Not finger, right there, see? And he said, can you say D-E-F? D-E-F. Can you say A-B-C, D-E-F? A-B-C, D-E-F. If you say that tomorrow, I will put another penny on this finger, and every day I will tell you something. And when you remember it, each day I will put another penny on another finger, and when you have all of your fingers with pennies, you'll have enough to stop the good humor man and buy an ice cream. Oh, I remembered. I always remembered. And I had ice cream like forever and ever. Oh, it was, oh. My father was a very smart man, even though he only went to the 3rd grade. But he taught himself muy poquito español just by listening to the Spanish radio. He read all of Shakespeare. And he took calculus courses all the way, correspondence courses all the way through calculus. And he taught himself to read music and play the piano. So, I would sit on the piano bench, and I would sing while he played the piano. A little off key, but I would sing. And this is my father playing the piano. Dum, da-dum, dum, dum. My sweetheart's the man in the moon. I'm going to marry him soon. Would fill me with bliss just to give him one kiss. But I know that a dozen I never would miss. I'll go up in a great big balloon to see my sweetheart in the moon, and behind a dark cloud where no one is allowed, I'll make love to my man in the moon. So I learned that education does not always come from formal schooling. And I learned that education, learning things, has rewards, not just for ice cream and pennies, but things that get inside of you, ideas and thoughts, and that you can use those ideas to determine what type of life you want to live. And within the parameters of everything that you've learned, well, you can make decisions. You can make this choice or that choice. And that's how you can run your life. And I also learned that when you have a big job to do, it's much easier when you break it down into small measures. Now, my mother always said that education is the one thing no one can take away from you. They can take away your money. They can take away all your riches. They can take the food off your table and the house where you live, but they cannot take away your education. Maybe that's because she only went to the 8th grade. My mother was born in 1899. But when you meet her here in her kitchen, and she is drying dishes, she's very young. She's about 34. She's very pretty when she smiles. And she's very petite. She's not even 5 feet tall. Her hair is heavy, thick, jet black, wavy hair. It's beautiful. And she has it cut in a very stylish bob. And she smokes a lot. And she plays poker regularly. And she never loses. But right now, I have a question for my mother. I'm coming home from my friend's Patty's house, and I want to know, Mom, when am I going to go to hell? Who told you to go to hell? You know, I don't want that kind of talk, Betty Lee. Well, Patty's father said, I'm going to go to hell because I don't have a T over my bed. It's not a T, Betty Lee, it's a cross. There are millions and millions of people in the world who do not have a cross. They're not all going to go to hell. Patty's father doesn't know everything. But for some people, a lot of people, a cross is important. It makes them feel secure and safe. It gives them great comfort and love. And that's a decision that people make for themselves. You have to make your own decision. You don't have to follow the crowd. If all your friends were going to go jump off a bridge, Mom! No, you wouldn't. No. You're a good child, Betty Lee. You're not going to go to hell. I'm your mother. I won't allow it. You're going to stay right here with your father and me. Now you go wash up. Go wash up for something. At that moment, my mother told me something that had been said centuries before in a venue not unlike this, but it was a round audience. And a man stood up and he said, "To thine own self be true." So, now I'm 9, and it's the Saturday matinee at the movies. We're waiting for the show to start. It's called Gone with the Wind. I have no idea what it's about. And the boys are all throwing spitballs, and they're teasing us. Stop. 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 And in the back row, some couples, they're already kissing. Oh, the movie's starting. So there's a big farm. It's really big, and there are people working, and there's a big mansion, and a girl is sitting on the steps, and she's surrounded by boys. And the boys keep talking about a war. I think, oh, is this going to be a movie about a war? I knew about war because Mr. Kafka, who lived next door to us, well, he walked like this. Hello, Mr. Kafka. Hello, Betty Lee. And so one day I asked my mom, why does Mr. Kafka walk that way? And she said he was gassed in the war, and that was a war to end war. And I knew about that because I learned it in school. I learned about President Wilson and his club, that he got all the countries together so that they would have meetings and talk about things instead of having wars. Oh, it was good. And then there was my Uncle Charlie. And sometimes my Uncle Charlie would get sick, and then we would drive out to see him in bed at the Veterans Hospital. So he was a soldier too. And I knew about George Washington and that war. So yeah, I guess maybe I know. This might be about the Civil War that we're just starting to learn about in school. Anyway, Scarlett just keeps saying, fiddly-dee, fiddly-dee, fiddly-dee. And all she talks about is that silly Ashley and how he loves Melanie. And I decide then and there that I am going to be like Melanie. I am going to be good and kind and generous and thoughtful and caring all the time. And everybody will really love me. So the war goes on. Atlanta burns and stuff happens, you know. And Scarlett comes back to Tara. And it's not the same. It's been ravaged and pillaged. Only the walls are standing. Her father is demented. There's nothing to eat. She's starving. And she falls to her knees in the dirt. And she's looking for a root to eat, just to gnaw on. And then she stands and she says, with God as my witness, I'll never go hungry again. And in that moment, I knew I had that kind of strength. No, it wasn't a physical strength. I was only 9 years old. But I knew I had this internal strength like she had, and that it would serve me well. But there was something else. I knew about war. I knew about battles and generals and victories. And the soldiers, you know, they're not going to come home, some of them. And the ones who do, like Mr. Kafka. But this showed me the people who never wear a uniform, who never see battle. Scarlett's world was, it disintegrated around her. And I thought, all the people, what happens to them? Oh, Scarlett, she was pampered and privileged. Not everybody is, most people are not. Doesn't matter what kind of a dress you have. When you're starving, it hurts. That loss, that grief. Millions and millions of Scarletts. Since the first caveman threw the first rock at somebody, the entire earth, it's war and war and war. And what happens to those millions of Scarletts? Well, you can be a pacifist. And when the dogs of war come after you, you could go, peace, brother.
Oh, I didn't realize you're a pacifist. Pardonnez-moi. You just go and play. You go and have your fun. I'll go over here to these people. And when they turn on me to defend themselves and become violent, you can call them warmongers. Yeah, that's going to work. Even that Melanie, sugar and spice wouldn't hurt a fly. She shot that Yankee soldier stone cold dead on the staircase because she knew she had to defend herself. And when you have to defend the weak, you better be ready. You better be ready to stand and fight. Well, now I'm 11. And very shortly, I am going to leave grammar school and go on to junior high. But right now, I have to remember something about Gone with the Wind. Yeah, it was Rhett. You'll remember Rhett. Well, he was a big bad boy. And a lot of women like big bad boys. Yeah, not good marriage material maybe, but they're a lot of fun. And if I had Rhett, I would have kept him on a long, long leash because men like that, they have to feel free. But in the end, he leaves her. And Scarlett's going, but Rhett, what'll I do without you, Rhett? What'll I do? And he looks at her and he says, cut! Cut? Well, that's when the Hayes office stepped in. See, the Hayes office used to be in charge of the Hollywood moral values. That was before today's routine of, whatever it is, those numbers. And they had a high-level meeting, and they argued. See, on the one hand, I'm telling you, Bert, we can't allow it. What'll the people in Kansas think? On the other hand, screw the people in Kansas, they know about it. Yeah, but not in polite company. You don't want to be sitting next to your mother. Don't worry about my mother, Sid, she's going to be just fine. But the box office, screw the box office, it's going to be boffo. People are going to stand in line for hours just to buy tickets so they can sit through that entire cockamamie movie just to hear. So, a faithful and historical decision was made. And this is how it went. But what'll I do? What'll I do without you, Rick? And he looks at her coldly and says, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. And all over America, people went, oh. So that's it. Things were changing. And now, as I told you, I'm 11, really growing up. Going to be leaving grammar school. But right now it's Sunday morning and I'm sitting in this big armchair at my sister Ruth's house. I slept here last night because I was babysitting her kids. 25 cents for the night. Good money. And later in the afternoon, we're all going to go out to Knott's Berry Farm. No, not very far. Not like it is today. No, it was a farm. And the Knott's family had built a restaurant alongside the highway. And it was customary for families to take a Sunday drive, go out there and have chicken dinner and boysenberry pie. So that's what we're gonna do. I have to finish this homework. And my sister, she's in the kitchen, she's making breakfast. And I can smell bacon and I can hear her little radio that sits right next to the bread box. And the music is coming out. They said someday you'll find all who love are blind. When your heart's on fire, you must realize smoke gets in your eyes. Well, the songs were so romantic and melodic and beautiful. Oh yeah. And then there was ka-ding, 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 ka-ding. Well, I gotta get this homework finished. Betty Lee, my sister Ruth is calling me from the kitchen. Betty Lee, call Dad. Tell him that the Japs just bombed Pearl Harbor. Okay. Hello, Dad. Ruth said to tell you that the Japs just bombed Pearl Harbor. No. She heard it on the radio, Dad. No, Dad, what time are we going to not? He hung up. He went to listen to the radio. So I finished my homework. We had breakfast, and then we all went out to Knott's Berry Farm. And that was the moment that the war to end war became World War I. Things were never the same again. And so, those are some of my moments. I'm sure you will have your moments too, and sometimes you'll make God laugh. But you know, that's life. And you know about life. You know, life is just a bowl of cherries, or it's a box of chocolates, or sometimes it's a stream, and other times it's like a horse race, or it can be a song, or it can be a cup of coffee. But from this vaulted pinnacle of age, I look back and I think life is a lot like this room in back of me. Yeah, and in that room are two women, a sailor, and a platter of spinach.